So, I have a new video for you, and I've had this Vulk Audio Supersonic, which was built by a lovely guy who's also a fellow Norwegian pedal builder. And I had it for a while, but I haven't shot a video yet. I told him I would. But the reason for that is I wanted to do something a bit peculiar. Now, I knew as I was receiving this that I would be having a sort of full lineup of the entire family history of the ToneBender circuit in 4 enclosures with each of the sort of original most important iterations of the circuit, but none of them would be the standard version of each of the family members. So it's important to understand, and people tend to be confused about what makes a fuzz, and I think it's much easier once you start thinking about it from a sort of circuit standpoint, which means a fuzz is limited by resources, and at the time in the 60s those resources were engineers, like just labor or just craft, and also components, both of which were in short supply, and so you had to sort of bring as much out of them as possible. So that ended up with the circuits just sort of coaxing as much gain as possible out of very few active components, and different brands were sharing the same circuit from the same engineer. And so that's what happened. So it gets confusing. You have Mark 1, and then there's the roto sound, and then there's a Marshall thing, and then there's the Zonk machine, and they're all essentially the same circuit, and that happened for each stage of the evolution of this sort of family of fuzzes. And today we have 4 representations of each of the 4 sort of family levels, all sort of based on something adjacent to the original circuit. So we got the Pew Pew Zonk machine thing called the Thonk, beautiful thing. I've made a video on this before, you can check out. I got the Fuzz phase from Dunlop. This one is a really good one, and that's what we also call a Mark 1.5 ToneBender. Then there's THOR, which is a very strange iteration of the Mark 2 ToneBender, and with it I was kind of trying to do just that, to sort of take the circuit and make it into something different. And then there's the Vulk Audio, which is a supersonic, and it's a Buzzaround, and the Buzzaround was based on the Mark 3 or Mark 4 ToneBender, which is essentially the same thing. So let's listen and compare, okay? And it gets quiet. So the Zonk machine is similar to the Mark 1 ToneBender, which has kind of the topology of a input buffer into a gain stage into another gain stage, and the gain stages are not properly biased, and they rely on the leakage of the germanium transistors to even sort of function at all. And so that's a very specific and very strange quirk of the Mark 1 ToneBenders. The Zonk machine has a very small input capacitor, similar to how the Range Master gets its sort of upper mid-range boost thing. So it's essentially just dumping almost all of the low end coming into the circuit, and just mangling that with gain and gating, and so you can get these almost quasi pseudo octave up things. Very cool. It's not exactly what I would normally use, because I've built my whole system around sort of a Marshall sound and a low output single coil guitar and a fuzz phase. We'll get to that now. And what that does is this. So you can hear there's a lot more low end going into it, and it also cleans up completely. You kind of have to learn how to use that. You need the right equipment, you need the amplifier that works with it, because there's so much bass, so you need something that pushes mids and just presence and punch and clarity, such as a Plexi or a JCM 800, and you need a low output guitar that works well with the mismatch in input impedance. And so if I were to play perhaps like a clean Fender with a Les Paul, I might use the Zonk machine instead, but I wouldn't get the cleanup, so I would rely on the amplifier for the cleanup. Just turn off the fuzz. That's a completely valid way to do it. It's not how I prefer to do it. But yeah, so the fuzz phase has two transistors which are directly coupled, and then there's negative feedback and an emitter bypass cap. All of this is what creates the correct amount of gain, in addition to the weird input impedances. And so that's very specific. Now the Mark II ToneBender adds a gain stage in front of a fuzz phase. So as a circuit, it's the only one that's sort of derivative of one of the other fuzzes. However, it gets much stronger and sort of tighter and more direct and punchy and just like very familiar sounding. Now my THOR is not a usual ToneBender. The circuit is very similar, but I'm using wildly different component values, and I'm also adding voltage input sag and sort of Q3 biasing, and that makes it sound like this. That's about as normal sounding as it gets, but of course it is absolutely wild. And then the Mark III/4. Completely different circuit again. It starts off with a Darlington gain stage, and then goes into a normal gain stage, both of which have the emitter bypass cap trick from the fuzz phase, and it sounds like this. Cleans up as well, but you can hear that it's quite noisy in its cleanup. You can get around that a little bit by just lowering these, because you don't need them maxed out. But that noise, that hiss, comes from the emitter bypass caps, and there's no way around it. If you want that gain, it comes with noise, but it has quite a beautiful sound to it. It's quite quick and responsive as well. I think in addition to just being something that sounds exactly like how you think a fuzz should sound, or how you expect a fuzz to sound, it kind of behaves in the same way as well. And I think if you haven't tried a ToneBender before, but you want that kind of sound, you want that personality and character that a fuzz gives you, but you're a bit worried about having to sort of restructure your entire rig around maybe like a Mark 1 or like a fuzz face like a Mark 1.5, or if you find the Mark II to be maybe perhaps a bit too boring or whatever, then the Mark III is probably sometimes like just the best entry point. And it was for me too. So Embla, as some of you might remember, is kind of just a mild Mark III in some ways. It doesn't have a Darlington input thing. It only has the emitter bypass cap on one of the transistor gain stages, and so it's not as loud. But this might be it. And so Vulk Audio makes a really good one, and he uses all modern components except for the transistors, which are vintage. And so if you care about that, then this might be the one for you. If you want the Mark 1 thing, the Zonk thing, Pew Pew makes both a Mark 1 and a Zonk, and he goes to extreme lengths to make it as vintage authentic as possible, and it sounds amazing. And if you're into that kind of tone, I don't think you can get a better deal on something as authentic and well built as this. He sells these at like perhaps a third of the cost of what it would cost you to get one from Color Sound or other manufacturers, so it's pretty good. The blue fuzz face from Dunlop is quite nice, and if you've seen that pedal show, you know that the English guy, what's his name again, he likes that, and for good reason. It's really good fuzz face, and it's created by George Trips, who is in charge of the team over at Dunlop and MXR and Way Huge, of course, which was his indie company back in the day. And well, THOR, if you're a bit more sort of ready for exploring the edges of reality, that might be the one you'd want. So that's that. Let me play out on the Vulk Audio Supersonic. And there it is.